In this video lecture, we'll take a closer look at pragmatics. We'll focus in on conversations, looking at conversational maxims and conversational implicatures. Pragmatics deal with the practical aspects of language rather than the theoretical or purely linguistic aspects of language. What we're mostly considering is the role of context and how it plays a role in allowing us to understand what people are saying. In a sense, we can think of pragmatics as really the method we use to make sure people understand what we mean, not what we say, because what we say is not often what we mean. For example, if I ask my partner, do you find it cold in here? I'm really subtly asking if she'll turn up the heat or allow me to turn up the heat. There's a hidden message in the utterance that's not said explicitly. Pragmatics cover a lot of language. We've already looked at reference and inference, the use of pronouns. This is an aspect of pragmatics. Conversations that we're looking at now is also an important part of pragmatics. In particular, we're going to focus on some of the rules of conversations and also look at how implicature can be used to convey meaning. Conversations take place under what we call the cooperative principle. This is the idea that anybody participating in a conversation is going to follow the rules and make contributions that are sincere and appropriate. Grice in 1975 outlined 4 conversational maxims. The first was quantity. When we are conversing, we want to be informative. For example, consider the following dialogue between a parent and their teenage son. The parent asks, "Where did you go?" The son replies, "Out." The parent asks, "Well, what did you do?" And the teenager replies, "Nothing." The teenager is violating this conversational maxim of quantity. They're not providing an answer to the questions. So this maxim focuses on, first, making sure you have enough information, but it's also important that we're not too informative. For example, you might ask somebody, "Can I borrow a pen?" But you wouldn't ask somebody, "Can I borrow a pen that has ink in it?" It's assumed if you're asking for a pen, then you want a pen that's in working condition. The next conversational maxim is quality. And quality refers to the assumption that people partaking in a conversation are going to tell the truth. So when a parent asks a child, "Did you just walk in the kitchen and steal a cookie?" And the child replies no, because in his mind he didn't walk, he ran into the kitchen, he's still violating that maxim of quality. Remember, pragmatics deals with making sure that people understand what you mean, not what you say. And the meaning the parent intended was about stealing the cookie, not about the method of ambulation. Next, we have relevance. It's assumed that people partaking in a conversation will maintain the topic. They'll stick to that topic, and they will provide information that is relevant to the discussion. And finally, we have manner. Manner refers to both being polite but also being clear and speaking in a way in which your conversational partner will understand. I guess what we could say is that in order to not break this conversational maxim of manner, you should circumvent obfuscation by eschewing a sesquipedalian oration. Now, if you want to know what that means, it means don't confuse people by using big words. But it's clear violation of this maxim of manner. Not a lot of people will know what you're saying if you speak in such a way. I want to show you a little video clip here of what happens when conversational maxims are violated. This is a clip from a CBC radio show called Q. At the time, Jian Ghomeshi was hosting, and he had brought Billy Bob Thornton and his band on as guests. It turns out that part of the deal was that Jian Ghomeshi would not ask him or mention anything about his acting career or his Academy Awards or his stellar directing career, but rather would focus purely on music. Jian Ghomeshi breaks that requirement in the introduction, as you'll see, and Billy Bob begins to play a game of pragmatics that is interesting, humorous, and really uncomfortable. And I want you to notice how uncomfortable it is. And as you're listening, you'll see him violate maxims of quality, quantity, relevance, and manner.
Well, the sound of Maud Billy is a blending of pop music epitomized by bands like the Byrds and the Monkees, imbued with some good old American hillbilly sensibility. Maud Billy is also the name of the new record by my guests, the Boxmasters. If the name Boxmasters sounds familiar, there may be a couple of reasons why. Firstly, Maud Billy is the Los Angeles-based trio's third album in the last year alone. Yes, this is a band with ambition. Secondly, the Boxmasters' principal songwriter, singer, and drummer is a guy named Billy Bob Thornton, whose other job, some of the time, is Oscar-winning screenwriter, actor, and director. While Billy Bob Thornton's name is most often linked to his cinematic endeavors, the Boxmasters is anything but a diversion from the silver screen. He's always intended to make music, and he just got sidetracked. These days, music is a major priority in his life, and it's something he's obviously embracing. And I'm pleased to have all the members of the Boxmasters, Billy Bob Thornton, J.G. Andrew, Mike Butler, and Danny Baker here in Studio Q. Hello, boys.
Hey, how's it going?
Good to have you here. 3 albums in the past year.
Yeah.
That seems ambitious.
That's the ones that have been released.
Yeah,
we've
we've got a
recorded
lot
about
more.
5.
There's more.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys formed, Billy Bob, you guys formed only in the last couple of years, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
How so?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, when did the band form?
I'm not sure what that means.
Oh, well, when did you guys first start playing together?
We started about 2 years ago, and we haven't stopped since we got the ball rolling.
And you've made 3 records in that time. And you're currently on tour with Willie Nelson.
And Ray Price.
And Ray Price.
Yeah,
And
so it's a fantastic bill.
have you done shows before this run with Willie Nelson before?
Yeah, we did a run last November and December for a few weeks with Willie in the States, and it was amazing. It was great, you know.
What do you learn from Willie Nelson, Billy Bob?
I've never met him.
Are you being ironic or are you being serious?
I don't really know him.
You've never met Willie Nelson?
Well, I said hello to him once. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys don't really hang out on tour.
I
You don't know what I mean.
No.
Why do I get the impression that you're going to answer with you don't know what I mean if I ask you things? So how is it that did Willie choose you guys to come on tour with him?
Shit, I don't know.
Right. And that was true for you, Billy Bob, growing up? It was a sort of a combo of Stones and Monkees and Buck Owens?
I just liked baseball when I was a kid.
And you almost became a professional baseball player, right?
I don't know. Maybe.
But you didn't love music when you were a kid?
I subscribed to a magazine called Famous Monsters of Filmland, which the publisher was a guy named Forrest J. Ackerman, who passed away recently.
Do you remember what you were listening to musically when you were a kid?
Well, they had a contest where you could build your own model, and it could be like a King Kong, or it could be anything from something that you created yourself to like one of the monsters that was actually in the in some of the magazines, like it could be Frankenstein all the way to Phantom of the Opera, and they made these plastic models in those days that you could buy and put together. But this was like a thing you could create your own world of it. Build telephone poles, make the railroad tracks and everything. And I actually did enter it once. I didn't win anything, but I gave it a shot, and but it was it was a big deal for us kids in those days.
And where's the music? Where's the music fit into that?
Music? No, it was a monster magazine.
And next, I want to look at conversational implicature. Again, this comes from Grice. And when we talk about conversational implicatures, what we are referring to are things that are suggested in an utterance, even though they're not strictly implied. We say it's entailed, although it's not explicitly stated. So for example, if somebody says, Mary had a baby and got married, there's a secondary meaning in there that suggests that perhaps she had the baby and then got married. A speaker might correct themselves, say, Mary had a baby and got married, although not necessarily in that order, because the speaker would understand that there's clearly an implicature there that is not entailed in this particular example. So there are three types of conversational implicatures that you can get using Grice's maxims. First, you can violate one of those maxims to try to convey additional meaning to what you're stating. Let's say for an example, student A asks, what did you think of last night's lecture? And student B says, well, I'm sure he was speaking English. Now, right away, what we see here is this is a violation of the maxim of quantity. There is nothing that's been added to this conversation, at least not as we understand this explicit sentence. Of course, he was speaking English. You went to a lecture. But when you think about why student B has violated the maximum, then we can see, oh, of course, what he's implying is that the lecture was very confusing, and about all he could get from it was that the language was English. Next, you can take two conflicting maxims where you have to violate one in order to invoke the other. So let's say a student comes to the psych office and asks, where's Dr. McCormick? And the admin assistant says, well, he's either in his office or at home. There's a problem here because maxims of quality and quantity are now in conflict. Saying that he's either in his office or at home is a problem with quantity. That's giving the student too much information. It's like asking the pen with ink. But on the other hand, we have to assume that she is holding the maxim of quality, that she's not lying, that she's actually presenting some information here. And what happens is we have to invoke the maxim of quality, thereby reject the maxim of quantity, and that tells us that she doesn't really know where I am. Third, you can invoke a maxim as a basis for interpreting what's being said. So for example, a tourist asks a local, do you know where I can get some gas? The local says, there's a gas station around the corner. There is a maxim of relevance here. In order for this statement to be relevant, you have to conclude that that gas station would be open and you can purchase gas there. Remember, the tourist is asked where they can get some gas. So when you say there's a gas station around the corner, there's that implication that's associated with it that says that it's open and you can buy gas. Next, you can read more about conversations by reading section 11.6 of your textbook.